the sixth episode of the podcast, and I'm here with the two guests, Skay and Crisis. So why don't y'all introduce yourselves?
It's Crisis Does Games. Well, I changed it now to Icon Crisis, because Icon Clan, yeah. But yeah.
Hello there.
You sound exactly like Kenobi. I'm just saying.
It definitely helps that I'm from the land of Mary Poppins, so it makes the accent a bit more easy for me to do. Hello there.
And so Paro is unable to join us today, so hopefully he's able to join on the next episode of the podcast. But anyways, let's get right into it. So the first topic is, what do you think of FighterZ Season 3 Pass, whatever you call it? Season 3, that's what everybody's calling it. So why don't you start us off, Crisis?
Okay, well, I really don't have no thoughts on it because I have not played FighterZ in a while. So I really can't give my thoughts on it. I'm sorry. I just haven't played FighterZ in a while. And I'm probably not planning on playing FighterZ probably for a while, because really, to be honest, I got other games to play like Red Dead, GTA, Battlefront 2. I got other games to play, so yeah.
My dudes, with this update, no doubt, that means there's going to be buffs and nerfs, which means GT Goku is finally not going to be a steaming pile of censored because YouTube, but... Oh no, wait, you don't upload to YouTube now, do you? But anyway... yeah, any nerf to GT Goku is an improvement. It might actually get me playing the game again. In fact, I haven't played for a long-ass time, but I've been keeping an eye on what's going on, and I haven't regretted my decision because it's something I've noticed on quite a lot of games now. I mean, unfortunately, this seems to happen with fighting games a bit too now. I've noticed. I used to think this was something that only really happened on games with like champions in them, so League, Overwatch, that sort of deal. But what seems to happen now is whenever a new character comes out, it's almost like, not always, but it's almost like they're unbalanced on purpose to make them more desirable.
Yeah,
if that makes any sense at all.
Yeah, it does make sense. Oh wait, no, continue. Sorry.
So then they kind of retweak things later on, so then things become more balanced. I mean, granted, in a lot of ways, the players are like testing the game for them as well, I suppose. But in terms of the reveal characters as well, though. Was not surprised by the reveal characters, except Ultra Instinct Goku. I was not expecting them to release them as like the first one and the DLC thing. I was expecting them to hold on to that, but oh well. Makes me wonder what on earth the other characters are then, because it's like, isn't that like the peak? Like, where'd you go from there, you know?
Like, yeah. Because it's like Season 3, like, okay, yeah, they added Ultra Instinct Goku, but then they also added Kefla too, which Kefla's gonna come first, and then Ultra Instinct Goku's gonna come later in spring, which I find that interesting, that even though they revealed Ultra Instinct Goku first, but they decided to have him get pushed back later on than Kefla, which, I mean, it kind of makes sense because of the whole auto-dodging mechanic, which... I mean, I don't know how that's going to work for fighters. That's going to be interesting. But also, going back to what you said about the whole balancing with characters is, yeah, I do think that they actually do that, because in like Smash Ultimate, for example, when every new characters get released, they seem like overpowered, and they actually do, but then over time, when people like start complaining about these characters, saying, oh no, nerf this, or this character needs to be buffed in this area, etc., then the developers will look at that feedback, and then they'll go ahead and either nerf or buff the character, depending what a lot of people say. And also the thing with Smash Ultimate tournaments, I don't know if they do that for fighters or any other fighting game tournaments, but for Smash Ultimate, what they do is that they ban characters that barely got released, that there was no patch of them getting buffed or nerfed. They just ban them right off the bat and then wait until over time when they have the buffs that they needed or nerfs that they needed, so that way those characters could be used in tournaments. That's what they do in Smash Ultimate. I don't know about any of other fighting games. But then now looking at the... Wait, were you gonna say something?
Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say, I've kind of got this theory in my head over the last few years that companies have almost found ways to... How to explain it? Obviously, yeah, they test their games before they release them. I mean, they have to, otherwise you get things like Sonic 06, but...
Or Fallout 76.
And we don't want that to happen, do we?
But I almost get the feeling now that they figured out some kind of system where the most important bugs they'll fix on a game, but they'll have the players do the rest of the testing for them. Which is where some of the buffs and nerfs come in. Am I making any sense here at all?
Yeah, you are.
I don't really have a better way to describe it. It just seems like the game designers figured out some kind of way to let the players have fun with the game, but at the same time they're testing the game for them at the same time. It's an interesting dichotomy, or whatever big word you want to use for it.
Yeah, like that's why, like, just trying to like collect my thoughts here. Just like how in some games, like when they have like bugs in them, of course people will notice and they'll go ahead and like tweet it out or whatever, complain about this certain thing that what is a game that's a good example of it? I guess, yeah, Xenoverse 2. We could use Xenoverse 2, for example, with the whole netcode thing that literally everybody complained about that.
Oh, netcode is an entire different blooming can of worms. I mean, there's a whole thing to do with netcode with fighting games in general now as well. It will probably apply to Xenoverse 2, even though it's technically not a fighting game. Don't kill me for saying that, internet, but yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, like even though, yeah, netcode is an entirely different thing, but it's still kind of in a sense still part of the game, because everybody still complained about it, because like when it like netcode for Xenoverse 2, I don't know about any other game, but Xenoverse 2, then now fixing the netcode has spurred all kinds of problems with it, false hit detections, as well as combos falling out when they're not supposed to.
I wouldn't know anything about that after making as many Xenoverse videos as I have. No, I haven't encountered any of that.
Like, yeah, it's just like they attempted on like once, but it was fixed, it was improving, but then after a while it kind of just went back to how it is now, which is like, wow, that's like one of the most half-assed things that they could do to fix the netcode in Xenoverse 2. But again, that shows that they did fix that issue, because everybody in the community were complaining about it, even though, yeah, it was half-assed and it still went back to normal. But that's still another thing that, you know, people are still, I guess, testing the game and all that. And also when it comes to early release games too, when they say they're like in beta or in early release, like for example, there is a game that's called Ark Survival Evolved. It was in beta or early release for a long ass time, like for, I don't know, I don't remember exactly how much back then when I used to play like constantly. I remember, but I don't know how much, but it was for a really long time. I even bought it when it was still in beta or early release, and of course there was a lot of problems with it. People said what those problems are. I do notice those problems, even though I did make videos about it, which I guess kind of sort of helped addressing the problem. But they went ahead and fixed a lot of these issues, but they still have some issues that they have not yet fixed at all, which is annoying. Like,
See,
for
what you're
example,
describing there is like... What you've been describing me there has reminded me of something that I used to do as well. Thankfully, I don't do this anymore, because that was a terrible waste of time, but I used to play a lot of Korean MMORPGs, and I think they were actually some of the first people to be like, hey, you can pay to basically test our game for us. Isn't this a great deal? And I do think a lot more of the industry has found ways to basically do the same thing. You know?
yeah. You buy the game that's early release or in beta, you test it, you tell us the problems, there you go. And sometimes you have to buy full price too, which is kind of bold, but yeah. But anyways, we're kind of going a little bit off of fighters.
Yeah, that's a pretty big topic in itself. The whole thing of like early access and all that, but
yeah,
for another time.
Yeah, for another podcast episode.
FighterZ, FighterZ, I have to admit, I don't know all the new tech adjustments they're doing. I know they're allowing you to have a choice between assists, but I don't know how deep a system that is. I think do you have 3 to choose from or something?
I mean, the way that somebody explained it to me, because somebody actually did, is that yes, you could actually choose. It's kind of in a sense like Blaze Blue Cross Tag Battles. When you do an assist, you could choose between 3 types. Like,
okay,
if you...
so there's so it's all predefined ones, but you have 3 different ones you can use.
Yeah, that's like what somebody explained it to me, how it basically is. Which is...
See, if it's like cross tag, that's a cool system actually.
Yeah, it's interesting as well. But now going to like the what's it called? The UI for it and the character selection screen, that definitely a big improvement than before.
Yeah, the other one was a massive hodgepodge of what the hell is this even? And now they've got like one side of good characters and one side evil or something, haven't they?
Yeah, like they actually did split it in the middle, which actually kind of reminds me of the Marvel versus Capcom games, where they kind of had their characters kind of separated like that, sort of.
Oh,
it kind of reminds me of that.
This game is basically filling the void for Marvel. Although speaking of Marvel, Marvel 2 got into Evo for what was it? July, August, one of those periods of time. Las Vegas, biggest fighting game
in
tournament
July.
In the world. Oh, it's July. Okay. But yeah, for anyone who's confused about why Marvel 2 managed to get into there, there's a couple of reasons for that. The first one is it's the game's 20th anniversary.
Wait, Marvel vs. Capcom 2?
Yep.
Oh, that game.
And the other reason is because... I don't mean offense to my American friends here, but you guys are crazy over Marvel. Like, the only reason you stop being crazy over Marvel is because of FighterZ.
Well, I'm just... Oh, wait, continue, sorry.
Oh, not you specifically, I just mean, like, America as a country, when it comes to Marvel... You guys love that series to death. Like, it's pretty much your fighting game of choice. I don't even know what England's fighting game of choice is. I think it's something like Tekken or Mortal Kombat. I'm hoping it's the former, not the latter, because that would mean they have terrible taste. Oh, sorry. Anyway, but yeah, it will be interesting to see how that turns out, because they're celebrating that. Like, it's invitational only, for example, I heard as well, which means we're only going to have pretty much fighting game prodigies entering that tournament. But I'll be interested to see how many viewers that gets. Because Marvel 2, at this point, that is like... Marvel 2 is to the Marvel vs. Capcom what Melee is to Smash players. It's unbalanced as hell, but the nostalgia is just like, bruh, you know?
Yeah, but actually, like, when it comes to Melee, though, they're kind of patching it. They're not...
Rage.
Yeah?
I have to head out. I have to go early.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Whatever. I'll just, you know... I guess all I gotta say is I gotta go, and I guess it's been good being here for this time. Alright?
Okay, well,
right,
see ya.
See you later.
Oh, okay, well, that is the first time that happened in the podcast. Somebody had to leave early, which it's like whatever's.
If it's
So now
any
it's just you and me.
consolation, if it's any consolation, I've seen podcasts where a guest got kicked out halfway through because they were being offensive to the cast. Like, he gave. Actually, screw it. I'll just go ahead and say the example. Co-optional podcast, Total Biscuit. Because his initials are TB, someone else gave him in this podcast gave him the nickname tuberculosis.
Wow.
So they had a break to deal with that, and he basically got kicked out, and he was not in for the rest of the broadcast, understandably. Because it's like, is this boy trolling? You know?
Yeah.
When it's live and everything. But anyway, where were we?
Wow.
Yeah,
well,
Marvel. America has a long history with Marvel, and I think it's because of what a huge spectacle the game was, plus the fact it's Marvel. You guys love Marvel. It's like one of your biggest intellectual properties in your country. I mean, all the movies that are happening right now, you know, you prize Marvel very highly, which unfortunately Disney has a lot of control over. But I'm getting into a tangent there. But yeah, the whole FighterZ thing is like, it'll be very interesting to see what happens with this update going into the tournament, which I assume it'll allow the characters in there as well. Comparing the two audiences for Marvel and FighterZ, it's going to make a big statement. The viewer numbers will make a big statement on what the future is. Like, if Marvel does really, really well, that will possibly convince Disney, who basically owns Marvel at this point, to be like, maybe we should work with Capcom again and make another game, you know?
Yeah. Because it's a big success. And a lot of people like Marvel, like what you said before. Marvel is placed very highly, more than DC. DC movies do terrible. DC games do okay.
DC games and the animated stuff actually do quite well. It's the live action stuff which usually tends to falter. Although Joker's really good if you can stomach it. Though Joker is not for everybody. It is a good movie though.
Yeah, one of my family members told me that it was, it's boring. They told me that.
Yeah, well, that really depends on how into mental health they are. If you find that stuff interesting, it's gonna grip you. But if you find all the emotional basically, well, spoilers. Joker is basically about a loser having one too many shitty things happen to him, so he loses his freaking mind. If you find that interesting, what makes somebody do that, then you're gonna like the movie. If you're not someone who finds something like that interesting, well, enough said, you know. There are some people who watch movies who, like, when they watch a movie, they only want it to have like good things in it, you know. Like, have you ever heard the phrase before, like a Hollywood ending? Have you heard that term before?
No.
But basically, what a Hollywood ending is what it basically tends to mean is a story in a movie can like go in some really terrible, dark, nasty places or whatever, but because it's a Hollywood movie, everything will always work out fine in the end. Do you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, basically a happy ending.
It's kind of a happy ending, but like extra Hollywood cheesy happy ending. Do you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely.
There are some people who watch movies who expect everything to have like a Hollywood ending. Is what I'm getting at really when I say that. And Joker is not one of those movies. Let's just say.
Well, I mean, I don't know if it does or not because I haven't watched it at all.
It's not for everyone. That I can say with confidence. It's not for everyone because it goes in some dark places.
Oh. Oh. Alright, so since we're kind of going off track from fighters, so let's move on to our next topic, which is favorite game of all time. So what's your favorite game of all time?
This is the thing I was going to have the most trouble answering because there's too many games I like, but I'm really tempted to. Oh boy. I've got an answer in my head, but I'm trying to rationalize my reason for it. Because honestly, I think my favorite game changes from time to time. But for the sake of this, I'm gonna give like a fairly good answer to it. It's just like I would probably say one of my favorite games of all time, and we'll say it's just my favorite for now, is Streets of Rage 2. And I know that's a really old retro game. Although, by the way, shameless plug. There's a 4th game coming out this year, and we've not had a Streets of Rage game for a very long time. And for anyone who's curious about it, by the way, you can download the game on Apple or Android devices to play it with ads. It's not the best way to play it, but it's still a way to try it out. But anyway, yeah, the reason I like it, I suppose, is more like personal reasons rather than how good the game is, because the game is what you'd call a beat 'em up. They aren't particularly common now. Like these days, they tend to look more like Bayonetta, Devil May Cry, or something like Xenoverse, like an action RPG sort of thing. But beat 'em ups were like
River City Girls.
Kind of like River City Girls. It's kind of like River City Girls, but without the stats. Like, there's no way to level up. It's just you versus a crowd of enemies, and you've somehow got to come out on top. You can't, like, level yourself up so you can defeat them easily. No, you've got to work out how to control the crowd, how to take people out, and basically survive being surrounded by enemies. I'm just... See, if I had time to think about this, I could explain better what the feeling is like, but putting me on the spot is a bit more difficult. It's just like that feeling of being able to adapt that quickly in that moment to what's happening, to like take control of the situation and stuff like that. And it's a combination of that game and Fatal Fury is what really got me into fighting games, because when you're I won't go into huge amounts of detail, but as a child, I would say I probably had a few anger issues here and there, and those games were like, wait, you mean I can beat people up and I won't get in trouble? Hell yeah, let's go. Let's freaking go. And it's games like that that just like got me into fighting games general sort of thing.
Huh.
Because I feel like well, especially now, I feel like there's a lot of bad judgment towards people who are like get emotional easily, angry and stuff like that sort of thing. Like a lot of people see anger as a bad thing. I don't see it that way as long as you use it productively. And yeah, I know that's a bit of a contradiction, playing like, oh, you're playing a video game, being productive, but it's more productive than punching someone in the face, though. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because at least like when you play a video game, like let's say for a fighting game, for example, because you're gonna have to. I mean, unless if you let your anger overcome you, but if you get angry, you have this adrenaline, and then it gives you a chance to actually learn, adapt to what the opponent does, and so that way you could go and win against them.
Video games teach us some very strange lessons sometimes, and they're not always good for us, the lessons they teach us, but if a video game's good, and you haven't been spending most of your other free time on video games playing things with like bloody loot boxes or something like that, but a good video game sometimes can like put you under stress, but give you the tools to be like, I can overcome this, or I can learn how to overcome this. And it's something I've just like realized more recently, that like fighting games have that in like bucket loads. Of like you've just to be like super disciplined about what you're doing, observing what they're doing, and reacting to it, sort of thing. You know.
Yeah, and also, well, like going back to fighting games, and also like predicting what the opponent is gonna do next, and then you figure out, okay, let's say they do this certain move, and you saw that coming, you predicted it, and you read the opponent. Okay, so what move is most effective to use against him once you go and predicted it and counter it.
Mm-hmm. Streets of Rage 2 taught me a lot of like the basics of that, I would say. It's why I still have a soft spot for it even now, because I mean we don't really get much beat 'em up games now, and there are a few ones here and there. I mean we've had things like Castle Crashers, Dragon's Crown and stuff like that, but that one always has a soft spot in my head because the only other game that was around the same time as Streets of Rage 2 was Final Fight. And unless you had the arcade version, the console version sucked. I mean, do you know at all about like the characters that were in Final Fight at all, Rage, or?
Wait, on what again?
On the well, it was on lots of stuff. Just the game Final Fight. Do you know about the characters that were in that game?
No.
I was going to explain either way, because just in case the podcast listeners didn't know, but basically in Final Fight, that's the game where Guile, Cody, and Hagar come from. And if you don't know who they are, I'm talking about the characters from Street Fighter. Hagar the mayor, Cody the convict who became a mayor himself, and Guy the streetwise ninja person. But anyway, reason I'm mentioning it is back in the day, that was like a super important game that like improved how fighting mechanics in games worked. Like that was a really important game that like some games are so revolutionary that then other games kind of copy them a little bit. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
But what happened with Final Fight was that game came out. It was originally going to be called Street Fighter 2, would you believe? But then they were saying, no, this doesn't look or play anything like Street Fighter 1. Give it a different name. So they're like, okay, we'll call it Final Fight. Did really well in the arcades. They released it on the Super Nintendo, but this is where Capcom got shitty, right? You could only play 2 of the 3 characters. And if you wanted to play the 3rd character, you had to buy another version of the game which had different characters on it. It was a bit like Pokemon Red and Pokemon Blue.
Oh, that type of ordeal that... Oh, Pokemon's are exclusive to this version, of that version.
It was kind of like that, yeah. It was not good. Meanwhile, Streets of Rage came out. First they had a game with 3 characters, which was not bad, it was pretty good. But then they had Streets of Rage 2... 4 characters. Overall plays better than Final Fight 1 does, although people do argue with me on that sometimes, but I personally I think they're wrong, but hey. But yeah, long story short, I have a soft spot for Streets of Rage because it was the first beat 'em up that you could play that was like, it was like the arcade games, but it didn't lose any quality. Like what normally happens when you take a game from the arcade to a console. Normally you lose something along the way, and it's not as good, but that didn't happen with Streets of Rage, and it set a standard that lots of other games had to follow.
Huh. Wow, so, yeah, that is very interesting. Like, some of those I didn't even know at all, like, the whole thing with Final Fight and all that, but, my favorite game of all time. I had to think about this for a moment, but I think I might have to say Minecraft. That's my favorite game of all time. Reason why is because that game I still go back to playing it again, no matter how many years. The first time I ever played Minecraft, 2012, and it's been 8 years. I
confess I've never played Minecraft, but it's a revolutionary game in its own right because there's so much stuff you can do with it. Like the stuff you can do with Minecraft, from what I've seen, is the sort of thing in other games that you normally need mods to be able to do. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, basically pretty much build anything you want, create anything you want, as well as you could basically put in input code for the game to do a certain thing. Like command blocks, for example. You could put codes in those command blocks for it to do something. Like, for example, somebody created... Literally, you could play Pokemon Blue within Minecraft. Somebody has done that with a bunch of command blocks. They just put a bunch of codings and all that. And you could play Pokemon Blue in Minecraft, which is crazy.
That's insane.
Yeah, and then of course there's mods as well, which you could implement in Minecraft, which either... You could basically shape Minecraft however you want, with or without mods. And you could build whatever you want in Minecraft, because like there's other games as well, like other survival games like Minecraft. Minecraft was at first a sandbox type game, but then they added survival. And so there's like games like Ark Survival Evolved and Conan Exiles. Yes, those are survival games, but also they added stuff there that you could go ahead and build almost anything you want. The reason why I say almost is because the builds of it, yeah, you could build castles and crap and whatevers, but the thing is sometimes it limits you depending on the terrain and such, and you can't really necessarily edit the terrain like you can with Minecraft. You could literally make everything flat. Yes, it'll take time, that's games for you, but you could basically flat or make a mountain by yourself, or you could make a huge forest, etc., etc. And so I was gonna say, like, besides Minecraft, I was gonna say Pokemon Blue. The reason why Pokemon Blue is because I played that back in 2005, and that was my very first ever video game that I've ever played. And from there, that basically kind of introduced me to all other games. And then of course my older brother, he was also a gamer, if you would want to use that term, and he introduced me to these other games, and I watched him play other games as well that I also wanted to play. But then the reason why I'm not saying Pokemon Blue is because that I'm not really playing it right now. Minecraft, I'm still consistently playing it.
I can understand that. I mean, the first game we get, but the first game we play isn't necessarily like our favorite one, sort of thing. Like I can't even I can't even remember the first game I played. I remember the first game I finished, which was which was the Game Gear version of Space Harrier. And for anyone who doesn't know what Space Harrier was, it was basically started off as an arcade game, became a console game later, and it doesn't really have much of a story. It's just this sci-fi thing where you're on this alien planet where you have a cannon that doubles as a jetpack, and you're just flying around in 2D graphics that are trying to look 3D, and you're just shooting everything in your path. That's pretty much all the game is. It's just like shooting things coming at you and dodging bullets at the same time in this thing pretending to be 3D, which actually isn't. It was good. It was cool for the time, but not so much now, maybe.
That game right there that you described actually kind of reminds me of another game that was on the Xbox 360. I think it's just I don't want to say an indie game per se. No, it was just, I don't want to call it shovelware either. I don't know what the right term. It's called Aegis Wing.
Aegis Wing. Hang
on,
on,
the Xbox
let me
360.
Google that. Let me.
I think that's the. I'm like 98% sure that's the name. Basically, you play as these spaceships.
Oh yeah, right. I know this game. No, it's similar to that, but no. See, this what you're describing is a side-scrolling shooter. No, this one was like, you see the back of your character. It looks, but by today's standards, it looked like a third-person shooter. But everything was 2D graphics, and it was trying to be 3D. And you're just kind of running in a straight line, or flying with the jetpack. But you're trying to dodge things that are coming towards you at the same time, while also firing back.
Oh, okay, okay, yeah. I understand what you're saying now, because I had to like picture it in my mind first, like how would that look? And yeah, now I could actually picture what it
I
looks.
will send you a link to that very shortly. But anyhow,
Yeah.
let's continue the conversation.
Yeah, so to put my final thoughts of the topic of favorite game of all time, it is Minecraft. Played it back in 2012 on the Xbox 360. I know Minecraft dates back even later than that, or earlier than that, I should say. But that's when I started playing Minecraft, and I still play it right now. And yeah, it's my favorite game of all time. And of course, yes, Minecraft does get boring. Like back then, when I was first introduced into it, I was all in. I wanted to play consistently over and over. But now I'm just like, not so much. But I mean, I'll play here and there to probably create a building or two. But that's really just about it. So now, what about you? Do you have any final thoughts? It's your favorite game of all time?
Oh man, it's just bizarre when you've played as many games as I have. It's like I find it hard to call games my favorite game anymore because so many different games bring like different things to the table now. Like I really want to go back and this is actually on my to-do list. I'll be streaming these at some point, but I want to play through the Metal Gear Solid games because those are some of the earliest games I played where the story wasn't terrible, basically. I mean, I also have a theory as well about Metal Gear Solid that it actually converted a bunch of people into being weebs without them even realizing it, but that's a side tangent again, but yeah, Metal Gear Solid is a good game, man. It's aged a little bit now, but it's still mind-blowing in places. I won't lie. I am probably going to stream those games, and I'll probably turn those streams into a Let's Play. I won't lie. It depends how good the banter is. If the banter's good, which I'm hoping it will be, because it will have some deep topics in those games, then I will turn those into Let's Plays, because they'll be really interesting, I think.
Well, I never played Metal Gear Solid games before.
Oh, then you'll have a reason to watch the videos then.
Yep. Even though I've only seen like one or two cutscenes from I don't know which game of Metal Gear Solid. All I saw was Snake talking to somebody, and that's it.
Yeah, that was one of the things that made the games revolutionary. Is that it was one of the first games which had like a lot of storyline where people are just talking. I know that doesn't sound like a big deal, but that was one of the first games that people were just like, "Wait, we can do that and have that be part of a game."
Yeah, but let's move on to the next topic. What would the next generation of consoles be like? Basically, our thoughts on what we think next generation of consoles would be like.
See, this is interesting because I've heard some interesting information on this, and I have a theory, which I hope it's correct, but we'll have to wait and see. I have a theory we have another Nintendo Switch coming out this year in 2020. And the reason for that is because it's going to be a slightly higher spec version to compete a little bit with the other systems. Because as much as everyone seems to be praising the Nintendo Switch to death, for some reason it's having a lot of problems as well. I don't know why, but it is. Like, drift on the controllers, loads of games which have really bad ports, crashes and all this, a really bad online scene from what I've heard for the most part. And I would hope Nintendo would be smart enough that if this new version of the Switch comes out, I would hope Nintendo will be smart enough to fix a lot of those problems. Whether or not they will, we'll have to wait and see, but that is my theory in terms of Nintendo.
Well...
So... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Okay. So with the Nintendo Switch, like a lot of problems, like what I have to do with online, that I'm not sure, because the only game that really has online at all is basically Smash Ultimate. That's the only game that I have that's online. Although the games that I have on a Nintendo Switch, it's basically single player local. Like Castle Crashers, for example. Well, Castle Crashers is online, but
yeah. I know some people who've been playing the Xenoverse on the Switch. Like, why you'd want to play at 30 frames per second, I don't know, but hey.
yeah, that I don't know why you will play it. Like also playing Overwatch on the Nintendo Switch. Why would you buy that on the Nintendo Switch?
Oh, yeah, that
That's
as well.
the waste of money. That game is purely online. You cannot play that on the go.
Exactly. This is a terrible idea. I don't know what they were thinking with that.
Yeah, like at least Xenoverse 2, at least it has PvE aspects where you could play parallel quests or do offline battles or expert missions, but Overwatch, no,
Yeah.
that's one of the games that no, you cannot play that at all. And same thing like PlanetSide 2, I've seen that in the eShop, but I did not download it, but PlanetSide 2 is another game that it's just purely online. And you bind down and it's free, so you don't have to buy it, just download it. But you downloading on that on the Nintendo Switch is just a waste. Like
Nintendo Switch has done a lot of good, but there's a lot of dumb crap on there as well that I'm just like, Nintendo's not perfect, you guys. You need to understand that, and I can point to lots of reasons. It's like, oh, God.
yeah, it's like.
Although, I have to say, now I think about it, we live in the strangest timeline. We live in a world where Nintendo is okay with things like Zelda having a giant hitbox, let's just say. Meanwhile, in Sony land, we can't even have Devil May Cry showing Trish's butt. No, we have to put a lens flare there to hide the fact that her bare ass is showing on the screen for like one scene.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And it's just like, which of these consoles is for babies again? Hold on, what?
It's funny how back then, like on the PS3 and such, Sony didn't really necessarily censor that many things. Nintendo did, but now it's kind of switched over.
Stuff, and it's just like, what are they thinking?
Yeah, it's like for example, like there's this one game. I think Pyro Hinton told me about this. Is that Nekoparo? Nekoparo is in a sense a visual novel, but it does have a lot of, I would say, ecchi things. If you guys don't know what ecchi is, Google it, okay? That's if you're old enough.
Not. I don't know about that.
Well, no. Well,
Google it. Safe search on. I don't know, something like that.
yeah, but like it has a lot of ecchi things. But from what I've seen, is that they censored Nekoparo, which was rated M. They censored so much to the point that it's rated E now, not rated E 10 and up. Exactly rated E. And I'm just like, wow. And that's on the PS4 that they censored so much it's now rated E. Which is like, god damn, it's crazy how censorship there is so much on the PS4. Well, on the Nintendo Switch, they don't really care too much anymore. It's like as if they went reversed.
It's like the staff has changed around, and well, for anyone who hasn't heard this phrase before, I'm about to blow your mind. Once you go woke, you go broke.
Oh yeah, I've seen that a lot on Twitter.
And that's kind of what's happening with Sony if they're not careful. Although that brings us to another thing as well, is throughout the history of video games, I mean, we're going to be on what, the 9th generation when this stuff comes out, something like that. But throughout the history of video games, from what I've noticed, is that any company whose ego gets too big, they are setting themselves up for a big fall. A biblical fall. The sort of thing that some companies don't even recover from.
Yeah, because it's just a lot of bizarre or stupid things that they do.
And I feel like Sony is in danger of going down that path of just like having this gigantic ego of like, what do you mean you don't agree with us? We're Sony. We're the biggest. We have the biggest console right now. We have the most sales. What do you know? Just buy our games and shut up.
Yeah, and it's like like the thing is with Sony is that with Microsoft, they, even if like let's say the Xbox fails, like the next generation Xbox, it's called Xbox Series X, which I think is just a stupid name for it. But at least like for Microsoft, if that fails, they still have Windows to go ahead and back up to. So they have other things, while Sony, not necessarily so much. They don't have many other things like Microsoft
what does Sony have left if they piss everybody off? Although, now I think about it, this generation, I heard some kind of rumor about Sony on this generation that behind closed doors there was something along the lines of, we have to win this gen, or we're out. I don't know the exact details of that, but that was something I heard when the PlayStation 4 was only just coming out, was something about how they had to win this generation or they're just leaving, they're out. I don't know what the situation is going to be for PlayStation 5, but that is what I heard about this generation at the beginning.
Yeah, I don't know about that either, but also I heard that the whole thing with the whole crossplay thing, that Sony might, like, they finally enabled crossplay on the PS4, but they might retract that on the PS5. They might remove it. That's what I heard.
It would be a really bad idea, but it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, because like here's what I think in terms of who like accepted crossplay. Like, oh yeah, they're all for it, and then which ones like it took a while. They had to pull teeth for them to be like, okay, fine, yeah, we'll go crossplay. So it's Xbox, it's Microsoft, Nintendo, and then Sony. Sony, it was the hardest to have them accept crossplay. Xbox,
do you know why it took them so long to accept it though?
Because they don't actually. Well, I heard why it took so long for them to accept it in Minecraft, but I don't know about any other games.
I'll tell you the reason why that they're not going to tell you.
Oh.
It's because they're in first place. From their perspective, it's like, what benefit do we get from this? It helps the other companies more than it helps us. What do we get out of this? That was probably the thinking that they had. It's a bit like how... It's a little bit like how, you know how the Microsoft Game Pass right now is like, you pay for that pass, you have a metric crap ton of you can play just on that one pass.
Yeah.
And do you know why the only reason that pass exists?
I remember, I think you might have said it before, but then to somebody else. I think on your I don't know. But why?
The effect that competition has on people. When you're in first place, it gives you an ego. It feels like it makes you feel like you don't have to try as hard. So you just this isn't just a business thing. This is like a psychology thing as well. When you think you're in first place, you don't think like you have to work as hard. You think things are just kind of given to you because of where you are. Like a king is going to get more pissed off if someone doesn't bow to him than maybe, say, a prince might. And that's kind of a little bit the difference that's going on here, is like, Sony is like, you should be grateful for anything we give you because we're in first place. Whereas Microsoft is doing that crazy deal with the games because they're in third place and they're like, look, we understand we're messing up. You think you've got better deals out there that you can go to instead of us, but are you sure about that? Look at all these games we have.
Huh. Well.
It's a bit of a lesson, well, the console wars in general, I don't really think they call them console wars anymore, but consoles in general are a good case study in the importance of competition, because it forces you to do things you wouldn't do otherwise. Which is also something a certain other company needs more of. YouTube! Excuse me, what?
Oh my. But yeah, it's, I don't know, I just lost train of thought, damn it.
Apologies.
No, it's all good. But yeah, but now going back to the whole thing with Nintendo for a moment, like switching it to them, is that Nintendo, like I watched a few videos as well as read one article, is that I try to remember. Like I had it before previously when we were on the Nintendo topic. Like I had it like literally right in front of my mind. But then now I'm just kind of, it's not there anymore.
Now you're asking your brain to remember things, and now it's just dabbing.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm just trying to like remember, but
get the member berries out.
Damn it, I can't. Like, okay, with the whole thing with the PS5 and then the Xbox Series X, which I really hope they change the name, but there's a chance they won't once that comes out. But they're doing like a whole like they're actually doing something with the Xbox Series X that they're basically doing a bunch of stuff that they're gonna actually try to make it successful, unlike the Xbox One or the Xbox One S. Like really, they should just call it the Xbox 720. Because I remember back then, like
I think they're keeping. Oh, that was another thing as well. I think they're keeping the name quite simple because there's going to be different versions of the Xbox. This is what I think is going to happen, because lots of people are comparing the new Xbox to a fridge and all these other things as well. I think what's going on here is, I'm not entirely sure how true this is, but I almost get the feeling that Microsoft is trying to warm people up to the idea of like, you should buy a PC, bro. I mean, I know PCs are scary, but it's okay. It's okay. We'll give you this box that's a bit like a PC and a little bit easier.
Yeah, like it really does look closer to a PC, but not exactly like it. But
it's an unfortunate thing, because like, in a lot of ways you do get more from a PC, but people get intimidated by how much you have to pay up front, the technical stuff and all this, and just the thing that the problem with PCs in general is they're not just a box you can just plug in and it works. Sometimes you have to do a bit of tweaking around and stuff like this, and it's not seen as fashionable. PlayStations are seen as fashionable. Of all the consoles, probably Switch and PlayStation are seen as like the most fashionable ones of the bunch. Even now, despite all the good that PCs have done, a lot of people, if you show a PC to them, they're just like, no.
Yeah,
and it's not right, it's not correct, but that's normies for you.
Yeah, because like, well, for the Nintendo Switch, it's easy. Literally, it's a gaming console, and nothing. It's a gaming console first, and then whatever other stuff like adding YouTube, Netflix, whatever on it. That comes next. Because I remember back when the Nintendo Switch, when it first came out, when it was like new, completely new, like a few months after, there was articles being written that, oh, the Nintendo Switch are missing this, they're missing Netflix, they're missing Hulu. What is this? This is an incomplete console because it doesn't have that. That's a prime thing.
So it's missing all those things, and it's like, hang on, didn't a certain other company do that? Xbox, TV, sports, Call of Duty, Call of Duty, Call of Duty, Call of Duty Dog, Call of Duty, Call of Duty, Call of Duty, Call of Duty, Call of Duty. Sports, TV.
Yeah.
TV, sports. That's... No, I'm joking. Go ahead.
Yeah, but it's like, if they do release a new Nintendo Switch to go ahead and compete with the PS5 and the Xbox Series X, which really, like, I've seen like a bits of an article that basically says that, oh, these consoles are getting closer to being basically like PC, which I could kind of see that they kind of are, especially the Xbox Series X. They're making it getting closer to the PC. But then now we look at the Nintendo Switch. What are they gonna do exactly? Like, yeah, they could still do the whole idea, which is a really good idea that they did with the whole, oh, you could play it on the go, or you could play it like as a console. But then again, they're gonna have to like update the graphics as well as the frames per second and etc. to go ahead and compete with the PS5 and
this is why I think
Xbox
we're gonna get an updated spec version of the Switch. I really hope I'm right. I'm not entirely sure if I am going to be right, but I really hope I'm right. Because then if I am right, I'm going to keep rubbing it in everyone's faces.
Yeah, which, I mean, hopefully they do, because, like, when it comes to console generations, there was 2 Nintendo Switch consoles that came out in generation... What is the PS4... What generation is it? Generation 8, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so
I think that's what it was.
Yeah, because it is Generation 8, because they said the PS5 and all that is gonna be Generation 9. So the Wii U was supposed to compete with the PS4 and Xbox One or Xbox One S, whatever. But of course the Wii U failed because it has terrible sales and etc. So then they went ahead and released the Nintendo Switch in 2017. And to compete with the PS4 and the Xbox One, which it did good, competing with them too. But the problem that I think that they had is that they released 2 consoles in one generation, and now they're kind of sort of stuck to what they should do to compete with the PS5 and Xbox Series X.
I would have no problem with them releasing another Switch, as long as it's a significant improvement over the other ones. I mean, it's pretty much what they did with the Game Boy Color, the Game Boy Advance, the DS, the 3DS. It makes sense, really.
Yeah, it actually does, because they died. Yeah, I don't know what the hell that was. Okay, but yeah, it actually does make sense, because in the past they actually have done that. Which, yeah, I used to have the DS Lite, and then the DSi, and then the 3DS XL. So it's like, yeah, they and also fix the issues with online. I feel like I was
smart waiting, not buying one, to be honest.
Yeah, because it's like I got, well, if you want to call it, the first generation of the Nintendo Switch because of Smash Ultimate, because I was going to go and compete in tournaments and actually take Smash Ultimate like competitively, like seriously competitively, but life got in the way, and now here I am now, haven't even competed in a tournament yet, which I am, well, if anybody sees on Twitter, if anybody follows me on Twitter, they did tweet out, the Evo Twitter did tweet out that, okay, yeah, we have Evo, it's gonna be on July 30th through whatever's, and I retweeted that of, eyes, which means those emoji eyes, which basically means that I'm planning on possibly
getting back in the game, boys.
Yeah. Yeah, possibly
back in the game, baby,
attending Evo, because I was thinking that should I into a local tournament first, or should I just go straight into the big boy leagues and go to Evo and have that be my first tournament?
Don't go to Evo.
Why?
Especially if it's going to cost you a lot of money, don't start with Evo because you will be throwing yourself in the deep end. Playing any form of fighting game in the same room as other people is like a completely different experience. Like the pressure you can go under and everything.
Oh yeah, with the whole thing with the audience.
I've experienced both. I've experienced like both sides of it. Like, I went to a Christmas event for Street Fighter 4, and I was really nervous for that. And that was just in the casuals. I wasn't even entering in the tournament. I was nervous in the casual matches. And then later on, I went to a convention which just happened to have Street Fighter 4 set up, and I won the first match, didn't think anything of it, but then the guys there were like, "You're still on the machine. It's winner stays on," and I'm like, "What?" I ended up winning, I think it was like 3 or 4 times in a row, and then someone just showed up, and I think they'd just been observing me the whole time, and they knew exactly how to beat me, and they did, so it's like, okay, sure, whatever. I had that little taste of glory, sure, okay.
Yeah, well, I mean, I kind of I don't know if you will call this like an actual tournament, but in my high school, we used to have tournaments there.
Okay.
And one of them was, well, it was before the Nintendo Switch came out. So it was on the Wii U, Smash 4, because a lot of people call it Smash 4. And so, yeah, it was a tournament. And yeah, a bunch of people entered in, and I was actually one of the top people that won. I was like in the top 3. I don't remember I don't remember what position I was. 1, 2, 3, I don't remember, but I know I was in the top 3. And it was a little bit of pressure. It was like whatever about it in the end. I don't know, maybe it's not the same thing as an actual tournament.
It might have been the environment. That can happen sometimes. The environment is definitely a factor. If people are super chill, relaxed about it, it's not quite the same as people who are all super serious about it. Like I've played games against all kinds of different people. Like in the younger stages of my life, I mostly played games with people who just like. It's hard to imagine this now, especially with the internet, but when I first started playing games, most of the time I was playing with people who were just like, "What do you mean you know the controls? Look out, everybody, we've got a badass over here." And it's just like, it's basics. How do you not know this? But apparently that would apparently be enough for me to be like, "Oh, he's too good at games." Just knowing the basics. And sometimes when you go into an environment where people are playing games, it can be like that. Whereas other times it's like, "Bro, do you even know how to wave dash? Do you know what a QCF is? Do you know what do you know what a QCF is? Do you know what wake up is? Do you know what frame advantage is? You know?"
Yeah, a bunch of that. Like, oh, there was only one terminology that you use that actually applies to Smash. Well, Melee, to be specific. It was wave
Doesn't
dash.
Terry Bogard have QCF?
I don't know, because I don't really play as him that much. I only played him like only like a handful of times.
I think it's QCF, for anyone who doesn't know, is short for quarter circle forward.
Oh, that. Oh, okay. I mean, I think so, because there's different variations of, from what I've heard. I didn't really necessarily attempt it when I was playing as Terry, because again, I only played him a handful of times. That people tell me that there's actually different variations of his specials, side B, down B, etc.
Yeah, if I play Smash, I'm warning you, Terry will probably be one of my mains. Just putting that out there.
Oh, well, okay.
If I ever play that game, I don't know though. Not enough hours in the day. There's a meme for this. How does it go? Don't have a job, don't have a money. Don't have a job, don't have the money to buy games. Have a job, have the money to buy games. Don't have time to play them.
Oh yeah. That exactly sounds like one of my family members, where they work, they go to college, and they just don't have enough time to play it. They want to play it, but they just don't, which
Mm-hmm.
is a new. Now, let's move on to the final topic of this.
Final topic, boys.
What's happening with Funimation?
Oh, this is a very controversial topic.
Yeah.
The question is, do you want me to talk no holds barred on this or not? Because, oh dear.
I mean, either way, this podcast is gonna get hate because of the previous topics that we talked about, like, you know, yeah, the previous one. So I don't think it makes any difference, especially since
So you're saying I can take the gloves off and when I talk about this then?
um. Well, I'm actually thinking for a moment because it's like, okay, like because the whole thing with people is that they will use something from what happened in the past and they will use it against you in the present.
Oh, you're like, on this podcast you said this. You're talking about that, aren't you?
Yeah, it's like, oh, but on this podcast you say this, so we're gonna go ahead and cancel you.
I don't mind saying this too much. It's more a case of, well, for your perspective, really, because it's your podcast.
Huh.
So,
You know what?
how nice do you want me to be about this? Do you want me to say all the stuff that's going on in my head right now, or do you want me to be diplomatic? Is pretty much the question I'm going with here.
You know what? Okay, yeah, you could go ahead and say what you want in your head, but before you do, let's have a disclaimer. Okay? So everybody, even people in the future that's watching this that might possibly use this segment to cancel one of us in the
Basically,
future.
if facts offend you and you think your feelings are more important, you might as well leave now.
Yeah. So and also people, if we like have our thoughts on this and our opinions, like hard opinions that might offend people, just to let you know that times actually change and people do change as well. So if you like, let's say, use this like 5-10 years later, then it's gonna be like, bro, that's 5-10 years ago. People, they change. Okay, people change. So don't try to use whatever's like in this podcast to cancel us or whatever's in the future or in the near future. Okay, so that's a disclaimer right there. And if they take whatever you say or I say out of context, then I'll be like, okay, hey, I'm gonna point to this disclaimer right here. All right.
Alrighty, so the situation with Funimation is there's a few things going on here. Like it needs to be realized that Funimation, at the end of the day, was pretty much an acting school who was looking for a niche where they could make money. So what originally happened with anime was just like they realized there was a demand for anime because of what 4Kids was doing, so they got on the bandwagon. That's pretty much what happened. However, there's a bit of an issue because there is a stigma in the West, a bit in America, especially in England, that anything that doesn't look real, looks like a cartoon of any kind, is shit. That is the mindset a lot of people have. They believe it's shit, or at the very least, it's only for kids.
Oh, I heard that one definitely. Oh, this is for kids, this is for that.
So they a lot of these companies, Funimation included, jumped on the bandwagon of like, people want these Japanese cartoons, we can get in on this. And that's kind of what's happened. What some of them didn't realize is some of them have very adult themes, some more than others. And that's kind of what's happened really, because they translate it to English, but then they realize, hang on, some of this is quite... Well, no, actually, sorry. What happens is they look to see what's popular, and then they get the rights to translate it. But it's not until after that that they realize it's got adult themes in it. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense. Or you
It's
could
like,
say etchy.
I'm gonna buy this popular thing the kids are into. I don't know what's in this. Oh! That's a lot of curves. But anyway. The issue they have then is they've got to translate this into English. And localization is a problem in itself because the English language is different to the Japanese language, so certain words don't make... certain jokes don't pass over, certain bits of culture don't pass over, so they have to change things over. Sometimes they go too far, like the Jelly Donut incident on Pokemon.
That I don't...
Google it. Basically,
Okay.
they didn't. Basically, they thought people wouldn't know what a rice ball was, so they made. There's a scene with Brock holding rice balls, and he says, "Who wants a jelly donut?"
Oh, okay. Yeah, I seen that on Twitter.
That's an example of a company translating something to English, and they're just like, "What do we do with this? We don't even know." And that can happen. Things like that can happen, but you can also have situations where people are unprofessional. Let's just say there's some examples of this as well. There's someone on their localization team who translates things into English. I'm not gonna say their name. They know who they are, and I'm sure people can find out who they are if they Google. I'm sure people who listen to this podcast are smart enough to do that. But basically, some people do this other thing when they translate things into English where they take liberties. They do things they shouldn't do. They put bits of dialogue in there that shouldn't be there. You get sometimes you get things like ghost stories, which this is this really boring anime which done really well in Japan for some reason, but in the English dub, they take the complete piss. Like, it sounds like an abridged. And they got away with it because they got the rights to do it, and they were just like, do whatever, we don't care. And it actually makes the show more interesting because of that, even though the script is almost nothing like the Japanese original. But you also get other situations, like something that happened with Dragon Maid. This is a really infamous one, right?
Yeah, I've seen that on Twitter, like a comparison between the English sub and then the English dub.
Where one particular character of the sexy persuasion suddenly turns up on the show and they're wearing a bit more clothes than they normally are, and the other characters are just like, oh, what's that all about? And in the Japanese dub, they just say like, oh, I've just got a bit tired of the whole male attention and everything. And in the English dubs, you just guess, oh, patriarchy. And that's just like, why? Why do you do that? The only person who does like a translation like that is someone who's trying to inject an agenda into something that wasn't there in the first place. It's a bit like how in movies you would just have someone like suddenly selling you a product which has nothing to do with what's going on, and it's just like, well, that came out of nowhere. Or us just having a conversation and then me suddenly turning this conversation all of a sudden over to being like, have you accepted your Lord and Savior Jesus Christ? It's kind of like that. It's like it's got nothing to do with what's going on. You're just shoving things you care about into the story that you want other people to care about. And in a lot of cases, it doesn't work. It actually pisses people off, and rightfully so. There's other examples of it as well, but that's probably like the best example I can think of.
Oh,
wait,
continue. Sorry.
I was just gonna say it just shows the attitude problem that Funimation has is they don't take the thing. Anytime they do stuff like that, it just shows that they're not taking it seriously.
Yeah, they're not. Like, for example, there was one example that I just thought right away is Dragon Ball Super. The whole thing with killing Caulifla, they made them in the English dub to be kind of like couples, which in the English sub, the original, they're just sisters. They just call each other sisters.
In the original dub, they're sisters. In the English dub, they try and hint at this whole lesbian thing. which is kind of fucked up unless they're rednecks. Although then it's still fucked up. But hey.
Yeah, but it's like, well, actually, we don't really necessarily know if they actually are sisters or not. They just call each other sisters, and that's it. So we don't 100% know if they're actually blood related or
they're hinting at it, possibly, maybe.
Yeah, in the original,
I can give you a better example though. I can give you a better example of a translation from Super. In the final fight of the Tournament of Power with Jiren, the Japanese version sounds so much better, in particular the music, which is quite an achievement because they basically have the same song. The guy in the Japanese dub sounds like he's singing his heart out, whereas in the English version it's like, go, 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 fight some more.
Wow. Well, I never heard the English dub. Like, I never really went back.
Oh, you need to do it. You need to watch that fight and listen to the English version of that song. It is really bad. It's like they didn't take it seriously. It's like we're going. This is for kids, so we're going to do the song like it's for kids. And it just in the original the music just sounds so much better, whereas here it just sounds like they're just not taking it seriously. And it sounds really corny as a result. The sort of thing that you cringe at on like Saturday morning cartoons.
Wow. Well, yeah, I might have to, like, I've been hesitant to actually go back and watch the Dragon Ball Super in English dub, yes, for the first time ever, because usually I watch anime English dub. Reason why is because I don't want to look and read and then look at the animation afterwards, because sometimes I miss what happened and I have to rewind. And
yeah, because it's not only that, but when you watch the subs, it means you have to pay more attention. You can't do something else at the same time, really.
Yeah, exactly. While in dub, you could, well, understand what they're saying as well as what's going on. But with,
I mean, Goku's voice used to really put me off, like the way he sounds about baby stuff. Hello, 1 second.
Oh. Well, while he's doing something, I'm gonna go explain why I've been so hesitant with watching Dragon Ball Super but English dub. The reason why is because the whole thing with Kale and Caulifla projecting them as being a lesbian couple, which it's just like, okay, if they change that, how much more did they actually change with a Dragon Ball Super in English dub instead of just that? That is just one of the bigger issues with it that I've seen on Twitter, and that's why, like, I know about it, is because yes, I see it a lot on Twitter, sometimes on YouTube as well, because YouTube sometimes recommends me, hey, you should watch this video on what's happening with Dragon Ball Super, why did they do this? Then I'm just like, I sometimes click on it and sometimes I don't. I don't know why YouTube recommends me those videos, but sometimes YouTube does.
They know you like them Dragon Balls, and they're trying to push Funimation because Funimation's trying to make that money dollar.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's there's just a whole attitude problem with Funimation at the moment. Then I'm sorry, I said it earlier, but I'm gonna say it again. Get woke, get broke. You know, it's just like you should. They're trying to inject, like, I mean, it isn't. I understand it's important when you translate something from Japanese to English. Not everything's going to transfer over, but when you start putting in these other things, like, yeah, we're deciding these characters are lesbians now, and oh, we're going to decide this character's like a feminist now, even though they weren't before. It's just like, why are you doing that? It doesn't add anything to the show. It's just you almost like turning it into a fan fiction, you know?
Yeah, like, exactly. It's not being anywhere near the original material. Like, people don't like when you mess with what they have in the story, like what they wrote, the dialogue and everything. They don't like it if you just you completely change the dialogue and then put in whatever agenda that you have in it, because that's not really necessarily, like, going to in line with the original material.
And there's a lot of stuff doing that now. I know it's controversial for me to talk about it, but fuck it, I'm going to do it. The Ghostbusters movie, the latest Harley Quinn movie that's come out, the Batman version where Batman's a woman. None of those have anything intelligent to say, except girl power. And there's nothing wrong with girl power, but it's just like when it's shoving it down your throat, it's like, yeah, and do you actually have anything intelligent to show? Do you have anything intelligent to say? Because apparently not, because you had to hijack something else to put your message into it. You couldn't come up with something original. So clearly your message isn't very good now, is it?
Yeah, it's like, if you want a good movie, don't project your idea so hard into it, because then it's just gonna be a garbage movie, and then people are just gonna be like, no, this movie is just about this certain thing. No, I'm not gonna go ahead and watch that. And plus, people, if you complain, if you complain about a movie that's not doing particularly good, and then you blame those people, saying that, if you blame people saying that, you don't watch this movie because you're misogynistic or anything like that. No, they're not, because that is not in their line of taste of movies. People have their own right to their own opinion, as well as what they want to watch and what they don't want to watch. Don't go force people into calling them that.
The people who do the name calling like that, it's because they know if you try and have a conversation with them, their ideas will fall apart, and it makes them very angry very quickly, because they can't actually defend their own ideas. They can't actually even defend them. They can't do it.
Yeah, because it seems illogical.
I mean, Harley Quinn is probably the best example of this as a character, because the thing with Harley Quinn is, she's a therapist who gets fascinated by Joker, almost infatuated with him, but then it becomes almost like a case of Stockholm Syndrome. And for anyone who doesn't know what Stockholm Syndrome is, it's the mental health phenomenon where you've been kidnapped by someone and you've stayed with them so long that you're actually almost in love with them, like a parent. Like, you can't think of life without them. So despite the fact they might have treated you like shit, you still stick with them. Or at least you struggle with the idea of, I'm going to try and become my own person rather than being attached to whoever my kidnapper is. Literally or figuratively, sort of thing. But there are so many people who, when they see Harley Quinn, they just treat her like, yeah, girl power. And it's like, no, that's not what she is. That is an insult to the character. She's so much more complicated than that. She's so much more complicated than that. It's about being betrayed. What a character is about being betrayed, but being in denial about being betrayed for a very, 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 very long time, and then coming to terms of that and recovering from it. But there's so much media for Harley Quinn which just gets that completely wrong.
Yeah, and then people will complain or compare it to other movies as well. Like, for example, they're comparing that to Sonic, and it's like, Sonic and Harley Quinn, those two are completely different movies.
Oh, that's not... No. What happened with the Sonic movie thing was they were saying that there was offensive language in the Sonic movie. That is basically what they said. There was offensive language in the Sonic movie, like racist or sexist language said about characters and stuff like that, you know?
Oh, well. I don't know. I thought they were like I see it on Twitter, and I thought they were just comparing and then just complaining that, so the Sonic movie is doing so well compared to the Harley Quinn movie, which is doing not that good.
There are people who the thing is, every time we get a movie like this, the Ghostbusters movie, the Harley Quinn movie, stuff like that, there's this whole thing of a lot of feminists jump on the bandwagon being like, yeah, woman pound, this is our movie, and it's like, that's not what it's about. If you want a movie about like the plights of women and feminism and all this, why do you keep feeling this need to steal in like other characters to do it? Why can't you tell your own story?
Yeah, like if you want to show girl power, make a character, propose to that to I don't know how the process is, but make it into a movie.
The first Wonder Woman movie was pretty good. That wasn't really compromising the character. That was in character.
Yeah, it was pretty good. Like female lead movies, they do well if it's good. Just like how movies that have male lead could do bad or good depending on the story, like the fighting scenes, etc., etc. Like there's a lot more stuff, not just this character is this certain gender. Okay, not gonna watch it. Like no, there's many things to go into
thing
it.
That they get wrong as well. There's another people who complain like, oh, if you have a character with a Gary Stu, it's okay, but if you have a Mary Sue, that's what people complain about. That's not what it is either. That's not what the problem is. No, what happens is this is another problem with movies that are influenced too much by feminism, is that there's like this bitter taste throughout the whole movie that they just have like a grudge with like every man that's ever existed. Do you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, I see that on Twitter. Again, I see a lot of that on Twitter.
It's just like you don't even need to know much about a movie. If you just see like one scene where like a character's just like stupidly like bitter and aggressive to like male characters for like no good reason, you just know straight away it's like a feminist movie. And it's just like, I know there are unresolved issues between men and women, but you getting super aggressive about it is not going to solve anything. That's just going to drive people more away.
Yeah, but actually, okay, we're going a little bit
we are
away
going
from
a bit
the
off
topic.
tangent, I know, but it's all kind of related because the problem with Funimation is twofold. First of all, it doesn't take anime seriously. Most of the time, it markets anime from the perspective of we're going to sell this to kids between the ages of like 6 to 12, something like that. We've got to make sure they can watch it. And anything else, they're just like, fuck it, we don't care. And I know they've done more adult-orientated shows, but that's like not their main focus, if you know what I mean. I mean, there was that show recently that I can't even remember the bloody name of it now.
Interspecies Reviewer.
Yeah, that's the one. That is not for kids. That is definitely an adult animated cartoon. They started dubbing it, they realised what it was, because they're idiots, and they should have checked beforehand, but hey, and they've just pulled the plug. Although there is another reason for that as well, and that's because I think one of the main characters is voiced by Vic Mignogna, who has had all that drama for the last few years, of them ruining his career. But that's another huge topic in itself. This is a bit of a side tangent, but it is related, I promise you.
Okay.
People are very angry with Funimation right now, but there is another thing that's going on right now as well, which I think is quite related to all this in a way, and that is the fight that's going on with TV on demand. And the two big players for that really is probably Netflix and Disney. There is a big belief right now that one of those companies is pretty much going to take over everything. A lot of people think Disney is going to do it, but this is the thing, right? A lot of people think if Netflix is going to win, they need to have as many other companies as possible team up with them and not Disney. And it would be smart for them to do that because there is a Achilles heel, I guess you could call it, problem with Disney right now. Do you know what that problem is, my dude?
No. I really hear anything about the problems with Disney. Like, all I know really is that Disney launched their services, Disney Plus, and then the reason why they do that is so that they could take off like all the Disney movies and such that they have on Netflix to put it on Disney. And also that's why they also bought like other companies such as, Fox Entertainment, like The Simpsons and all that. But that's as far as I know.
I can tell you what the problem is.
Oh,
The problem with Disney right now is they're too woke.
are they
They're too
really?
woke. They are too woke. They're making a movie for I think it's Black Widow, which is going to be really woke. Captain Marvel was a really woke movie.
Okay, well,
Star
Captain
Wars has
Marvel. Yeah.
Star Wars is a very woke. The new Star Wars movies have been very, very woke. And also the fact that Disney claims they have all these archives of old movies and stuff like that and sort of thing, but they're getting rid of them. They're becoming the owners of a lot of things like Home Alone and stuff like that, but then they're putting them in the vault. They're putting them in the vault, deciding for whatever reason, like, oh, these are problematic, oh, these have bad things in them, oh, we can't show this. Like, best example I can think of is this old Disney animation called Burr Rabbit. And Burr Rabbit is a bunch of stories about basically this one character called Burr Rabbit, pretty much. All animated and everything. However, between the stories, there is this couple of kids who are hanging out with this gentleman of colour, shall we say, and this is in the slave times, and he's the one telling them their stories. And they think his character is problematic and racist, so they won't show that movie anymore.
Wow. So they're basically censoring their own things.
And Disney has that attitude on a lot of their stuff, a hell of a lot of their stuff. If they decide something's problematic or something like that, they're just going to pretend it never existed. It's going to disappear into history. I mean, it would if it wasn't for the internet. Thankfully, because of the internet, you can still see a lot of this stuff. But this is the problem with a company like Disney, is like, it's so woke, it's deciding like, oh, we can't show these things anymore. When what they should actually be doing is something that I've actually seen on a Tom and Jerry collection, of all things. Before you boot up the disc, there is a message saying these cartoons are a product of their time. And what they mean by that is there might be possibly a couple of like racist things here and there in the cartoon or whatever, but that's history. That is what happened back then. I mean, just because something might be problematic, it doesn't mean we have to like pretend it never happened. Because that's one of the strange things a lot of people don't seem to understand, is like, people seem to think if you pretend something never happened, the problem's going to go away. When the stupid thing about human beings is like, in like one generation, people can forget really simple stuff. So it's just like, that is one reason why we should hang on to history, because there's like important lessons from history that remind us not to do things sometimes.
Yeah, to learn from history so that history doesn't repeat itself.
And like, the attitude of Disney is just like, oh, we can't look bad. We can't look bad. We can't let people see any of these things. We're just going to get rid of it. It's so bad. It's so bad. But sorry, I did get on a bit of a tangent there. I wanted to make sure you understood. I wanted you to make sure you and the internet understood why Disney has a weakness at the moment. And the interesting thing with Netflix right now is they have a lot of resources, so they can make all kinds of different shows. I admit some of their stuff is woke as well, but the important thing is, not everything that they do is woke. They have a variety, which is how it should be. Having the variety there so people can choose is better. Plus the fact that they are getting so much clout now. They are funding their own animated shows, things like
or Netflix exclusives. Like, isn't one of them? Oh, wait.
No, you go ahead.
Okay, isn't one of them like I see what a few animes on Netflix that are just anime exclusive, like for example, what was the one that I recently watched? Oh yeah, Last Hope, for example. Last Hope is only Netflix exclusive, and
Hmm.
that is actually a pretty good anime. It seems a lot like Gundam, but it's not. I actually did an anime review on it.
Okay, cool. If you if you're feeling brave, you should watch Neo Genesis Evangelion. That show is messed up though. That show messed me up as a kid. Although the Netflix version of Neo Genesis is their own dub. They did their own dub for it. Like they got their own voice actors and everything to do it. It's like a brand new dub that only they own.
Wow, so it's not. So that mean wait, so if they dub their own animes that are Netflix exclusive,
Hmm.
doesn't that mean that gives kind of, in a sense, competition to that of Funimation? Or no?
That was where I was going with this. Is Funimation probably has a bit of an ego problem, a bit like Sony at the moment. When the fact of the matter is, competition is starting to pop up, and probably one of the biggest ones is probably going to be Netflix.
Huh. If Netflix decide to do that, grab more animes and only make it Netflix like the thing is that I'm having a little bit trouble with Netflix is seeing which ones that originated from Netflix and which ones that they actually grabbed that were previously not on Netflix, but now they made it only Netflix exclusive.
That's going to take a bit of digging. There's some shows that there's some shows they probably just got the rights to hold onto. There's some shows that they're sharing with other people. There's some shows that they probably got the rights to and they've dubbed them. But that's like a whole different thing you'd probably have to research into. But fact of the matter is, Funimation is going in a more extreme direction than Disney, I would say, at the moment. And they need to be careful, or they could be in a bad place.
Yeah, because
I mean, if
then
I mean, if I'm perfectly honest, the main shows that are probably keeping Funimation alive right now is probably Dragon Ball. Because let's be honest, Dragon Ball is pretty much what made them the media giant that they are. It's probably Dragon Ball and My Hero Academia at the moment. Those are
what
probably the
about
two main big. What about
One
what?
Piece? Since that's still
Oh
continuously
yeah.
going, which is like I am
See,
just
I didn't
blown
even know they
away.
were dubbing it. Real talk, I didn't even know they were dubbing it. I thought people were just watching the Japanese version.
But yeah, they are dubbing it, and I'm blown away that One Piece is still going on with new episodes. I'm just like,
They're not still
wow.
censoring it with lollipops, are they?
I don't know because I don't watch it. I just keep up like every now and then of how many episodes they have, and they're close to 1,000 now, and I'm just
People,
like,
people told me that show has no filler. Ha! Ha!
every show has filler.
Bullshit. Oh dear, that's all I have to say about that. It's bullshit, boys. Although, while we're on the topic, what we need is a One Piece abridged, which is never going to happen because not even Dragon Ball Z abridged exists anymore because the copyright holders on YouTube are just making that whole thing a living hell for everybody. But that's another big side tangent, more than likely, yeah.
Yeah. So, well, especially since, well, actually, it's gonna take forever to actually abridge the One Piece though, because of how many episodes it has. Literally almost a
Well, they
thousand
don't
at
have
this
to.
point.
They don't have to do every episode. I mean, abridged DBZ abridged doesn't do every episode. They just like created highlights. Like, remember how they completely got rid of the side characters on the Cell Saga, like all those joke characters. They just done away with them completely. The only one who survived the cut was Hercule, and that's just because he's a reoccurring character.
Oh. Well, like I watched some, Dragon Ball Abridged, but not all. Because in the end, it's just a bridge, though.
You haven't watched all of it, or?
No, I've only watched only a handful in the Frieza saga, then a handful in the Cell saga, and then that's it.
That's the whole thing, my dude. I mean, I admit they did do Kai versions of them, which are pretty funny, and they also did a lot of the movies. But yeah, it's all over now. You might as well go watch them. I mean, this was something I said on one of my news videos on my Digibunker channel. Shameless plug, by the way. But the abridged dub is so respected. There are people who they only know Dragon Ball because of the abridged dub.
And didn't also Dragon Ball Fighters, like the dialogue and the story? Yeah, the story isn't that good, but I mean the dialogue though between character interactions, didn't they like get inspired by Abridged?
They probably did. They probably did get some ideas from Abridged.
Yeah, because Soul is kind of like Soul is one of the characters that basically roasts the cast of characters and fighters, which is kind of funny.
Soul roasts so many people in that game. Oh my god.
Yeah. And it's pretty funny. It's like you have to think like if they actually did get inspired by Abridged or not to do those dialogues. Because that's what, like, the story itself is meh, but the dialogue is just between character interactions is just funny.
They would never admit how important Dragon Ball Z Abridged was. They breathed so much life into those characters. They made them so much more interesting. And it made the show better as a result. That's why a lot of people... That's another thing that happened as well. People who watch Dragon Ball Z Abridged, they've been like, oh my god, if more English dubs were like Dragon Ball Z Abridged, they would watch more anime. That is literally one thing I've heard people say about Dragon Ball Z Abridged, is like, if it was all more like that, I would watch them.
Huh. Which, I mean, that could be a good thing, but also a bad thing, though, at the same time.
Oh yeah, it doesn't... I'll admit, it doesn't fully, like, respect the source material. Like, that contradicts a bit what we said earlier, of like, oh, you need to respect the source material, but it's like, as long as you do it, like... As long as you kind of, like, do it a little bit in a way that makes sense, that isn't too bad, you know?
Yeah, like... Yeah. But...
Like, making side characters like Popo, who barely get to say much of anything, really, or some of the best characters, it's like, dude...
Yeah. And also... Well, what was a few other things? I
guess closing statements, really.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So, to recap real quick. Actually, no, I think it might take too long to recap, so no recap.
To put it simply, wokeness is a cancer on the industry. Not just anime, but all industries right now. There is this drive to shove wokeness and feminism in people's faces, and it's just like, not only is it not working, it's making them lose money, and it's pissing a lot of people off. And I don't know why they want to do it. It's like they're trying to get people to join a cult. It's a big problem over in the West right now, and it's in danger of ruining lots of things. But hey, maybe one day they'll learn, or they'll double down and they'll ruin everything they touch. It will just drive people more and more away. They'll either learn the lesson, or they'll learn the hard way. And well, people like us probably listening to this podcast right now, we probably won't deal with them at all and then lose money. And yeah, anyway.
Yeah, but yeah. Anyways, guys, this is gonna be it for the podcast. It's a little bit longer than usual, but you know what?
We had to make up with people for leaving. I was making up for people leaving, so hey, it's fine.
Yeah, but you know what? It's all good. But anyways, guys, this is gonna be it for the podcast. This is also gonna be on BitChute as well. If any of you don't know, BitChute is another video sharing platform. So YouTube is not the only
Support
one out there.
alternatives to YouTube because we need them. YouTube is the Sony of video right now, and they need to be humbled so they actually care about the content creators rather than the people paying them the money. And the only way you can do that is by using other websites like BitChute, so please consider it.
Yes. Because, like, no competition, that means they could do whatever they want because they're basically kind of, in a sense, a monopoly. Like YouTube. They're barely starting to get, well, BitChute was created in 2017. But it didn't start to gain attraction until the end of 2019. That's when they actually really started getting attraction. But anyways, that's for a topic for another time. So anyways, it's gonna be it for the podcast. So peace.